Statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Madam President. We're grateful to Mr. Mladenov and to Mr. Elad for their informative briefings. The situation in the Middle East continues to be complex and continues to require significant collective efforts, first and foremost in the UN and its Security Council, which remains the main garant of the international legal architecture. By strictly upholding international law and adhering to the spirit and letter of the Charter of the UN, we see as a sound basis for developing a formula to resolve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. In this connection, we are seriously concerned about the aggressive re-examination of agreements reached earlier, including those that have been enshrined in the resolutions of the Security Council. We believe that any ideas or proposals in this area should be based on the relevant internationally accepted basis and earlier approved resolutions of the Security Council, the Arab Peace Initiative, the Madrid Principles. Any plans or accords, no matter what they are called, should be subordinated to the main goal, that is stabilizing the situation in the region through achieving a long-term, just solution to the Palestinian question as the key Middle East item on the Middle East agenda. We note that the situation in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict has inexorably deteriorated. The lack of progress in the political process has led to a vacuum which is being filled with violence, unilateral steps, and provocative rhetoric. The fact that all the age-old problems, including the settlement activity, remain far from being resolved, I think I don't need to remind you of that. The abyss of misunderstanding and mistrust is expanding, which undermines the prospects for resuming negotiations. We're also deeply alarmed by the escalation of tension around Gaza, the launching of rockets against Israeli settlements, and retaliatory airstrikes. We condemn any expression of terrorism. We call on all sides to refrain from confrontational approaches. We value efforts undertaken in the framework of the UN by the Special Coordinator Mladenov and regional players to counter current trends and to help the inhabitants of Gaza. Obviously, this kind of support should be provided in close coordination with the legitimate Palestinian authorities headed by President Abbas and should be part and parcel of the effort to restore Palestinian unity. We note the need for sustainable financing of UNRWA. The activity in UNRWA has an important stabilizing effect and has, for decades, eased the burden of Palestinian refugees in Gaza and in the countries of the Middle East. We'd like to recall that the issue of refugees should be the subject of a bilateral Palestinian-Israeli dialogue rather than the subject of arbitrary decisions. In current conditions, it is urgent to step up efforts aimed at restarting the political process between the Palestinians and Israelis based on the well-known international legal framework, which is based on achieving a two-state solution as a result of direct negotiations. Unilateral steps cannot ensure a just and lasting peace aimed at achieving the national aspirations of Palestinians and strengthening the security of Israel. It is precisely for this aim that we renew our offer to hold in Russia a summit between the leaders of Palestine and Israel, which would make it possible to overcome the very dangerous impasse that has dragged on and continues in the peace process. Russia will continue adhering to a position of principle, supporting and developing relations with all sides in the framework of a very positive agenda. We are in favor of resumption of active work of the Middle Eastern Quartet of international mediators, which has been endorsed by the Security Council and has a unique mediation format. Madam President, progress in the area of resolving the acute crisis situations in the Middle East and North Africa can only be achieved as part of broad cooperation while living up to our obligations in the framework of international law. The joint efforts of the country's guarantors of the Astana process have demonstrated that in spite of differences, it is possible to develop a common vision regarding the resolving the conflict in Syria. We are open to cooperate with everyone who is ready to constructively participate in this process. We are convinced that together we can do a lot to put an end to the bloodshed in Yemen, to stabilize Libya, to support normalization in Iraq, and unblock other crises. The countries of the region have a tremendous potential, cultural, human, natural potential to achieve sustainable development and to thrive. However, this potential can only be achieved fully when interference into the internal affairs of the region is ended. The Russian Federation is in favor of developing a positive and inclusive agenda for the Security Council and the entire international community in the Middle East, including on the Palestinian question. We believe that the meeting of the Security Council under our presidency on the comprehensive review in the Middle East and Northern Africa made an important contribution to the joint analysis of the origins of the regions that have encompassed, of the conflicts that encompass the region, and to find collective instruments to resolve these conflicts. A key moment of our common efforts in the region should be creating conditions that contribute to strengthening the overall atmosphere of trust. This will have a key importance in relations between the Arab states, Israel, and Iran. We'd like to recall that in its resolution 598 from 1988, the Security Council instructed the Secretary General to work together with regional partners to work on measures to strengthen security and stability in the region. This is a complex matter. However, we should start work on this track, and we're ready to provide wholehearted support in contacts with our regional partners. The ultimate aim should be the building of the kind of architecture of regional security which should be truly inclusive and assumes the participation of all states of this part of the world. Now, our notion of strengthening security in the Persian Gulf using international guarantees remains relevant. This could be implemented by starting with a conference with the participation of all states in the sub-region. In the long run, this kind of conference could be expanded to include the participation of other Middle Eastern countries. On all these issues and others, Russia is ready to work with all concerned partners in an open and impartial basis. Thank you very much.
Agradezco al representante.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation